Is it showing? No, it's not.
We're live.
We are live though. So hello,
That's
hello
okay.
everyone.
I don't know what I would tell my younger self as far as writing stuff, because a lot of this stuff is organic. You learn it as you go.
It's strange. It's nothing I ever expected.
I want to tell my stories by eliciting emotion in my audience.
So it's an organic process. They sort of layer on top of each other. Each one makes the next layer more obvious to me.
This whole thing could not have gone any smoother.
I usually say squad only in groups of 3. I like the batches, like squat, squat, squat.
Look, guys, this one's not going to be like normal. It's just not.
Welcome to the Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the mellifluous Kaylin Williams.
That's a big difference. It's like, are you talking or are you doing? What's happening here?
We still have all the pets that think, oh, it's time to eat. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m.
My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.
Hello and welcome to another Writer's Journey. We have a very special episode for you today with Richard Fox. Ask him anything at all. Top of brain, what you want to know, what's going on in his life. And there's something very special. Both Lauren and Richard have coming out with their... Lauren?
It is a rom-com date night novel of spectacularness.
Yes, I read early versions of it when she was getting the characters together. Now they've got audio coming out, so we're going to dig into that and all the things. Thank you, everyone out there in the chat joining us live. Trucker Charlie D, golf clap of appreciation for being top first comment. Zach Kenny, Rick Partlow, thank you for joining us. All right, let's just jump right in. How have y'all been?
Doing pretty good. I'm here. I've got my black raspberry sparkling water. From LaCroix.
I have got tea with a lovely For Fox's Sake mug sent to me by the wonderful Lauren Moore in anticipation of the release coming on Tuesday. So I've decided to break this cup in with tea and honey as I have developed something of a cold. But I'm trying to force it down with all manner of over-the-counter medications.
Yes. Oh, the Fox's Sake mug ought to make you all the way better, I'm sure. I'm sure that was promised by Dr. Strange. I was sitting in the movie theater watching Spider-Man No Way Home, and Dr. Strange came down the stairs holding that mug, and I said, I have to get that for Richard. He needs that in his life. And now he has it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing about that movie. It was a better Doctor Strange movie than Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I don't know how that happened. But
oh my goodness, yeah, he was quite a character in the Spider-Man movie. Yeah, and it was kind of like a teaser for that other, the movie.
I don't know what happened between the two movies. It's like at some point, they said, "Oh, Doctor Strange he's going to be a side character in his own movie." I'm like, what? Different discussion. Sorry.
Yeah. So we're here. We're talking about Queen of Sidonia. This is a story that came to you 2016.
It was a while back. The first time I ever had the idea for the Queen of Sidonia, I was flying to Korea for my very first assignment there. This was 2010, I want to say, or 2011 or 2010. Yeah. And there's a movie called The Sword with No Name on it, which is a Korean drama. and it was very good. I mean, like the action was there, and there was just the whole relationships that they had set up there. And I'm like, this is pretty good. And I'm like, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'll keep that in the back of my mind. And then as I came back to the States and had written the Ember War, the very first one, and that was kind of percolating through the system. I'm like, I should write something else in case the Ember War doesn't work. So I wrote down the Queen of Sidonia, and I was very proud of it. I really liked the story.
Yeah.
And then I put that out, and then I did the second Ember War book, Ruins of Onthlis, and that took off. And I'm like, okay, I see where my strength is. I see where I can find the audience in the Space Marines fighting aliens, pew pew pew. Kind of what you're gonna have to tell me what the proper terminology is for the ladies out there, but it's sweet romance. Because I don't put any kissy time stuff.
Yeah, it's sweet romance, but it's got a whole lot of adventure in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which like an action adventure sweet romance.
Yeah, action adventure. Yeah, definitely like a rom-com kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know how many sweet romance stories have attacks of robots and assassinations and all the other things that happened in the book. But the team of assassins who are trying to kill our female lead is just, I don't think that happens too much in Harlequin romances.
And they just kind of keep coming too. Yeah. But what we do have that a lot of those romances tend to have is you've got conflict between the two love interests. They are not exactly enemies turning to friends, but because they don't really know each other all that well. It was like a political alliance at first.
Right. Well, so the end of the first book, because Princess Cosima has to get into an alliance with the future king, and it worked well to the end of that story. But the problem is that was not a happy ever after sort of ending, and it left a lot to be told still. Like the very original ending for the Queen of Sidonia it was an epilogue. I chopped it off, thinking there's could be more here. I could do more with this story. And then that original ending did get put into the second book. So it was I think it was probably a good decision. I mean, like, you know what, there's more here. Let me leave that out here, leave it a little open-ended, and then come back later. And then with King of Sidonia, now we got the whole picture. We got Cosima's entire arc for how she finally becomes the full queen of this planet along with her king. So I was like, okay, that worked out well. And then also had you to help me write the whole second book, which I appreciate very much.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. It was an interesting challenge to take someone else's world and to take someone else's characters and to see what they would do next. Try to get into their head. And just from reading the first book and bouncing some ideas off of you, like questions that I had, but to reimagine how they would say things, how they would act, and how the scenes would unfold. I did enlist some help. I don't know if you noticed, but I stole some characters from real life.
No, who was that?
Including someone who's on the show right now.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Cameos.
Yeah. I think I stole maybe 5 Keystroke Medium hosts and just shoved them right in the book. Including all the... Go ahead.
I think it made getting into the head of the characters a lot easier because you're really trying to figure out how to make the romance of it really like blossom and be prominent while they're going through all of this assassination, people coming trying to tear them down. And that was actually a question that I had. How did navigating that for you do? Because you started with a Western romance where it's just like knee deep in the romance. You've just got some bar fights and stuff going on, but with this one, focuses kind of had to shift here and there.
Yeah, that's my side project, Richard. I have a Western romance. It's a mail order bride series, and I wrote the book 1 and book 2 and book 3, like they're plotted out. So a different background, but in both a mail order bride situation and in Queen of Sidonia, you've got the same thing where you've got a couple who doesn't really know each other all that well, and they're not only exploring a new world together, but also a new relationship together. and then how do you actually sort that out?
Mm-hmm. And what I liked with the King of Sidonia was that in the second book, you know, there's supposed to be the king and queen supposed to have this relationship together. Everyone thinks, oh, it's going to be hunky dory. And like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, wow, imagine that. An arranged relationship didn't work out too well. And so like that was that was the fun part of the second book was, okay, so, you know, Cosima has this relationship in the first book that ends, and then she's left with this other relationship. It was like, well, how do you balance this? And how does this end up working if it can work?
Right.
And I think that was fun to explore throughout the whole second novel.
Yeah.
And it's I don't typically do deep relationships in a lot of my books. Mostly it's just like, shoot him. And then and that tends to work. So but writing these more very character-centric stories is more fun, and I think I learned a lot more as a writer about how to have all these relationships between characters. And you know, sometimes that's a lot harder than just writing, you know, a battle scene. And rather it's like, okay, here are these two people, here's what one wants, here's what the other one wants, here's the conflict, and go. And it's like, oh boy, how do you figure this out? And that's a lot harder. And I got to give it to the ladies who write romance novels. They don't have an easy job. So yeah. I'm kind of glad it's like, I'm just going to have the giant robots punching aliens this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so true, because there's a totally different underlining way of forming the words, of delivering each scene. You know, you still got to get into the character's head and have these fun moments and stuff, but how you deliver them from the heart emotion side of things and still have it be gripping is hard. It is. Yep. So.
And then you're always thinking about, is the reader going to buy this?
Yeah.
Is the reader going to stay on for the story? Or do they get to the point where like, really? She fell for that? And then there goes, you know, there goes the book. But, so yeah. I don't think that happened with with King or Queen of Sidonia. So
yeah. Part of it was because I thought the characters in book one were very well developed. The main characters, Cosima and
Remy and everybody,
the king especially. So I could pick up on those characters and carry them through. And then when I had to add characters, come up with new ones, some of them just kind of, you know, spoke to me, came off the page. That was easy. Some of them, like I said, I stole from Keystroke Medium host. Just I'm part of the chats every day. We talk every day, you know, sharing the jokes. So they were very easy to just kind of get their voices and stick them in. That was a lot of fun. But because book one had so much to draw from, then their voices were kind of loud in my, you know, imaginary head, so I could keep going. Whereas when I had to come up with my own plot on my own, I found guys difficult to get into their head and to figure out, like, what is it like to be a man in love? Like, yeah. I know the girls' side of things, and I've, you know, seen movies, but that's not real life. So fortunately, I had you, and I had book one.
Yeah. I'd say when guys are in love, we just get stupid.
Just get stupid. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I describe characters as stupid hot. You just see them, and you're like, you know, that's how guys do.
Well, Facebook user says, I thought both Richard and Lauren did great with the picking up the pieces and make it work relationship. Complicated, but mission accomplished. So.
Thank
you. Can't see me, but I'm clapping for you.
Yeah. The that picking up the pieces and making it work relationship, that's like a big trope in Korean dramas, which I spent my 20s like consuming many Korean dramas. I just love it. I think the writers do a good job at like finding some impossible situation, and then it is, you know, humor and love and perseverance and a lot of like chance happenings that gets it through. And that feel was definitely in book one. I didn't realize that a Korean drama had started it on your end, but I was thinking Korean drama when I was kind of writing book two. That was definitely in there. But it's the humor, the comedy. It's like
it's amazing about Korean dramas. If you watch Korean dramas, these people are passionate. they're all about it. But if you meet Koreans in real life, there's like this, there's all the time. And no, but I think what also the thing about Korean drama is somebody's always getting hit by a car.
Yep.
And it's like I'm like, why didn't I do that? I mean, darn it. I missed that trope completely. But
well, we had a scene where it got close.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that very opening scene when she got blown up in a car.
That's true.
Almost counted. But
yeah.
But Korean dramas, people get hit by cars all the time, and it's
All right, we've got another one. The dumbest actions in life was for the woman I loved.
Yeah, that's what it's like for guys. We just it's like if you've ever talked to somebody and you're trying to be rational with them, and they say, "You don't understand, I'm in love." At which point you can say, "Okay, fine." You've abandoned rationality, and that's kind of how it is. At least for me, when it came to love, it's like that's how it is for this guy. But I don't know about any other guy. So.
Yeah. All right. Zach Kenny says, I happen to be listening through the Ember War universe on audiobook for the first time, read it many times. How's the Fall of Earth coming, Richard?
So the Fall of Earth, okay, I am finishing up not Governor 2, but the Ascent Empire 2 with David Weber right now. I got like 3 scenes to do. We're gonna have it to Bane by the end of the month. So then I have another military science fiction book for Bane that I should be done by the middle of September. And that's it's kind of Hammer Slammers meets the Odyssey. So I don't have a good title for it yet, but I've got all the characters down. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. And that's scheduled to be 3 books. But that is, you have it centers around a military squad who end up. I don't want to spoil anything yet, but there's a tank later, and tanks are awesome because I listened to way too much Sabaton. So but there is a tank that's going to be great. And then after that, I'm going to be writing 3 books for Aethon. So, Kayleen, you might get to Red Pen of Death that. and like I like to describe it as urban sci-fi because we have urban fantasy, right? And everyone kind of knows what urban fantasy is. It's magic in the modern world. But I like to think of this next book you could call it a techno thriller. These 3 books that I'm writing for Aethon, where it's set in the near future. A soldier has been badly injured, and then it turns into this Universal Soldier meets Darkman meets sort of the Crow, sort of a story to it. Ooh. And I had the idea for this back in high school, and I just been sitting on it for a long time. I don't want to think about how long it's been, but it's been a long time. Wow. So I'm finally getting this story out of my head. And then after those 3 books, which should go fast because they've been up here for decades, and then it'll be the time for the Fall of Earth. So the Fall of Earth probably out in February, I want to say. So shouldn't depend on how much pushback I get on other edits. So.
Wow.
If Kayleen's like, you can't have this character in here, nothing works. Or Kayleen's we don't know why you have this entire relationship with the corgis. It does nothing for the story. It needs to change. So
I've never deleted a character, so I wouldn't be afraid of that. Don't fear the characters. They're probably fine.
It's working. Getting edited by Bane. It's not. It's more along the lines of this is a little too modern. Change that. Okay, fine. But I've not had the point yet where the editor's like, none of this works. Fix it. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Knock on wood. Not yet. We'll see. But I've already bounced the idea off of. Hopefully there is indeed a Standish type. Zach, don't worry. He's not going to be. You're not going to see him. Oh, that's Standish. Rather, you'll see him like kind of evolve into Standish, and he's probably even the more funnier of course Standish types. He's going to be the more funnier of the characters for these for this series with Bane, and so I've got the outline completely done. I've got a couple chapters done already. I'm just finishing some other things with David Weber, and then that should be good to go.
Wow. About how many words a day do you write normally?
If I'm sitting down and writing, I can get between 5,000 and 6,000 a day.
Nice.
That's if I have the outline. And normally an outline for a book takes me about a week or 2. And that's a good outline for 75 to 90,000 words.
When you first started writing, what was your word count, and how did you build up to 5,000 to 6,000?
It's stayed largely the same, about 5,000 to 6,000, and it just comes down to if I have the outline done and on the screen next to me, next to the manuscript, I can just kind of refer back. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I had that idea, and then kind of go back and forth. And sometimes, I'll be sitting there, and here comes the muse to sit over, like, this character will fix everything. Do this, like, oh yeah, that does fix everything. And then I'll go back and just change the outline. But it's but no, that's been pretty consistent. Just how I work is do the outline. Outline tends to be between 5,000 and 10,000 words, and then that'll get me an outline for a book between 75 to 90,000 words. Generally,
Yeah.
So if I'm just like writing full, I can probably get a good book done in about 2 months.
Wow.
And
And for everyone out there whose jaws are dropping, like, how can Richard do that? Man, keep writing every day. That boy gets up, puts his butt in the chair, and he's like, click,
it's
clap.
the only way to do it. And I think it kind of came down to just how Amazon put KDP together, where if you're putting books out regularly, Amazon rewards you with a lot more visibility. So Amazon kind of trained all those authors out there to be pulp writers, and to write fast and write well, and then all the just attendant marketing and editing and everything. So it's a fairly good process, and it just I just had to keep the Bezos happy, keep feeding him manuscripts, and then he keeps sending me money, and I don't have to get a day job, so it works out pretty well.
Yay! Yeah, Zach says he's always loved the rapid release method. Interesting to hear how the sausage is made. Yeah, I'm actually pretty interested in like how the outline is made. So
the outline, typically, like let's say with this book that I'm about to do for Bane, or I'm currently working on, it starts off with, okay, here's what I pitched to Bane. Is this sort of a story? And they're like, yes, we want that. So then I would sit there like, okay, I'll start off with the first scene. Like, how do I introduce everyone? And for this book with Bane, is set in the Hell's Horizon story that I did with blanking on his name, Colonel Marine Corps. I'll remember it later. I'll just shout it out normally. But it's a book that's already been written, so the kind of the story of the universe is already made, and it's just set couple decades ahead. So Jonathan Brzee, there we go. I totally remember it. So like, okay, I know how it starts, and I know what the very, very last scene is in the whole series, and I know the kind of emotions I want to have at that very, very last scene when the characters are together. I was like, okay, and then I got to stop and think, all right, how do I get from A to B? And I royally struggled with this first book until I remembered I had this idea for a shower scene, which is going to be the funniest thing I've ever written, probably. So I don't want to spoil anything, but there's this one shower scene. It's like something out of Friends, just how everything has to kind of work together to make the jokes land. And for whatever reason, that shower scene kind of unlocked the whole rest of the book. Wow. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to have this shower scene with the characters A, B, and C, then that means I need to have them do this beforehand. I need to do this beforehand. And it kind of gave me the spine of the novel all the way back. And I'm like, I don't know why this works, but it does. I'm not going to complain about it. So that works. And then I was looking at the outline again. I'm like, I'm ending this book with this shower scene, which doesn't work too well as far as the whole rest of the tone. And I thought, what if I blow something up again? And it sounds silly, but it's actually like there's going to be a pirate attack that works with a story and actually should tie everything together and give a nice little action beat to kind of get people ready for book 2. So, but then, so I've got like, okay, so now I've got the spine of the story. I know with the big pieces that, the major act points. So they arrive on this one planet, they deploy to go fight these insurgents. Everything goes to crap. And I mean everything, like the entire government collapses while they're out there trying to do this mission. And like, okay, now, so like, that's definitely my first act transition point, is when they get word that this government has collapsed. And like, okay, what do they decide to do next? And then how do they decide to get there? It's like, okay, well, they don't want to stay on this planet because everyone hates them. So it's like, okay, but they're also surrounded by insurgents. And it's like, all right. And I don't want this to turn into, the march of the British from Kandahar to Kabul, for military history nerds out there. So like, okay, how do I make sure that most of the good guys actually survive to try to get to the point where they can almost get off base or off world? Okay. And then I can figure that out. Then I figure out how they get off world. Okay. Then what happens next? Does the person who's getting them off world, is he happy about this? Probably not. Then how do they get to the next planet? And then you kind of learn more about how everything has collapsed. And then also along the way is like, here are the characters that I have in mind. And I know that kind of the big movements I have for all of these characters during the course of the series. So I know one character has to encounter this one religious order, because that's going to be really important in book 3. And so that is something I do a lot of, is like for this series with Bane. I've got a good outline for every single book in the series. And so I know, okay, if this one character is going to have this interaction with this one religious group in this other book, okay, I need to set this up way beforehand so that when readers get to that, it's not like, where did this come from? Rather, it's like, oh, he doesn't like those guys. This is going to be fun. That sort of. So, and then I do enjoy doing that. It seems like, you plant these seeds, these story seeds that pay off in multiple books later.
Yeah.
And when readers get that, they love it. It's like, oh, I remember when that happened. That makes perfect sense now. And so, readers like that. I like doing it too, because it's fun to kind of, how to chart the course for the whole series. And then also it kind of gets me to, because I know that interaction with this character leads directly, with this religious order, relates directly to the very, very last scene I have in mind. And so it's like, okay, I definitely have to have this set up correctly, and in such a way that it seems almost throwaway in the first book, but then all of a sudden it gets more and more important as the story goes on. And readers also like that, because it kind of trains them, like, I need to pay attention to everything Richard's saying. And then when you as the author, it's kind of like a magic trick. It's like, oh, look over here. Oh, look over here. That was this the whole time. And so sometimes you can say, you need to pay attention to this, and it turns out, to be something irrelevant later on. But also other things are, you need to pay attention to this. And it's like, oh, that was incredibly important. So it's I'm being very vague, and I apologize, but it's also I don't want to spoil.
Well, you gotta, because you're going off of a story that's not even published yet. So
no, but the outline's done. So as far as I'm concerned, most of the work is done. Because the outline is where I put most of the skull work and the imagination into, is the outline, where I know, okay, this is how all these scenes play out, and then I kind of go back and say, make sure I mention this, establish this, and as things go along. Because I know, like in book 5, if it gets there, or maybe not, book 4, there's going to be like, this one character she gets claimed, so to speak, by this other organization. Like, okay, I need to set this up where that makes sense, instead of just having book 4, all of a sudden it's like this. It's this created drama out of nowhere with no sort of backstory or explanation. And readers, I think, typically go, what's going on? Why is this a thing now? Versus if the character, expresses some worry about, I don't want to go meet with these other people. They're going to try to make me get married, sort of thing.
Right.
So, and then, like she gets worried about that. Oh, guess what? Guess who's here? And so now there's more drama, which is always fun. All these books, all these stories need to have drama. Otherwise they get pretty boring. And so the outline really is where the whole story is for me. But then also sometimes I'll be writing, and then all of a sudden, during the middle of a scene, I'm like, oh wait, this works too, and I kind of add to it, and then that tends to make things. And then it has not happened to me yet, knock on wood, where I'm like, oh, this is a good idea, let me throw away half my outline. No, that hasn't happened. Has not happened yet.
But I think that's an important thing to remember. Is you said it just before you started going through how you build your outline. Is you'll come to a point and you're just like, yeah, and then you go back and change the outline if another idea has inserted itself, whatever tweaks need to be made to make things make sense. So it's like you definitely spend time on your outline But just like with editing the words and how the paragraphs are coming along, you can go back and change the pacing of the outline. So I just mentioned that don't be afraid to make changes to something you may have spent time developing, because it could just make the story better.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could end up like handing it off to your editor, and then your editor is like, this 50 pages need to go. I mean,
That's not that. Knock on wood. Also, that has not happened
that
to
has
me
not
yet.
happened yet.
Where the editor comes back and like, Richard. No, it hasn't happened yet. Knock on wood. So I found that if the story works in an outline, the story works as a manuscript. So
yeah. Now you spend a lot of time when you watch movies. You're paying attention to the plot. You're paying attention to the characters, and also your like personal reaction to the movies. And then you'll write a post about it later. So like you're learning from that. Does that slow you down or speed you up in the plotting process? Like, do you find like, oh man, like, do you find you overthink it, or does it help like hone your decision making process?
typically, when I watch a movie and I was like, that doesn't work at all, I'll see something like that, and it just keeps reminding myself to don't do that. And like with the Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange was kind of in the background for most of the movie. And I'm like, it's a Doctor Strange movie. His name's on the tin. So it's, the thought is, if I have a really interesting side character, don't make the side character the main character, because that's not why people came for the story.
Right.
And so, make sure to give the readers what they came for and what the readers want. And if the side characters are interesting, maybe they can go off and do something else later. And if the reader wants to do that. So when I watch it's like being a writer has kind of ruined, enjoying movies for me now, because I just sit there going, that doesn't work, and to a lot of things. And other times I'll walk out of the movie going, that was freaking brilliant. I don't have anything to complain about. And which, like with the Dungeons and Dragons movie, I saw that with a doctor friend of mine, and he knew I was pretty harsh on a lot of movies. And then we walked out of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm like, that was a great time. They really respected the audience, and they gave us some really good stuff. I'm like, I'm impressed. I mean, I thought there could have been a little. I thought the beginning of the Dungeons and Dragons movie dragged a little bit, but that's that's quibbles. So, and then I will watch pitch meetings on YouTube, and I love the pitch meetings.
Yeah,
and I sit there and I watch, and because he's very good at picking out where the writer gets lazy and when the producer gets lazy, and just super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Right.
So I'm aware, when I'm looking at things that I'm writing, I'm like, am I super easy, barely inconveniencing myself out of this problem? And if I am, no, I'm not doing a good job. And sometimes I'll get to a scene where I just get a little bit stuck. I'm like, why isn't this working? And normally the reason my writing will slow down for something is because I'm not telling it well enough. And then I'll find some way to go back and like, let me make this work properly. Like there's a scene in, I believe it's the 4th book of the Terran Armor Corps series, where there's a jailbreak from Mars. And by golly, I spent so much time making sure that everything worked for that. and for that jailbreak. And then for the Tier series, which is just finalized, and then that's a sort of, imagine V from the 1980s, but the humans are the lizard people. And there is a final action bit at the end of the 3rd book involving a nuclear weapon. And books 1 and 2 were there to make that last action series, just that action bit, just work. And it took forever, but it worked, in my opinion. So just, the normal problem, just throw a nuke at it. Well, I had that idea, but I'm not going to just throw a nuke at it. I'm going to make this nuke a real problem to get for all the characters. And how do you get this nuke that you went through all this trouble to get into orbit? Well, that's going to be a giant problem for 2 books. And then, so, making that all work took a lot of effort, but I'm glad I did it. I think it came out really well. So,
this reminds me of the philosophical question: could God make a rock that he couldn't move? Could an author make a plot complication so difficult that the characters can't sort it out? Have you ever been in that situation where you're like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this?
I've had that problem and ended up finding out I had the answer the whole time. With the Ember War, when it came down to dealing with the big bad Zaros, who are these nearly godlike beings, and my thought is, okay, how do I get my characters who are just plain old humans to the power level or the ability to where they can deal with these godlike beings? It's like, and there's an old saying when I was in the army that the best anti-tank weapon is another tank. So I was thinking, okay, what's the best anti-nearly god weapon? Could be another nearly god character. And then I looked around, I'm like, oh wait, I've got one. And I've got one right available. I'm like, oh darn, that worked out for me. I'm surprised that did. But the thing is, when you start introducing, this sort of a character who was, it's like you don't want it to be, oh, he can just show up and solve every problem just by waving his hand.
Yeah.
And then
that's the tricky part. You got to put some leashes on the OPs.
Yep. And so that was the harder part, was making sure this guy just couldn't solve every problem just by waving his hand at it. So I think that worked out pretty well, where he wasn't doing everything, and then this godlike character got removed from the storyline in a way he did not anticipate, which was fun. So not for him, but he comes back later and he still doesn't have a good time. But it's when you've got this big story problem, you got to think, okay, what's the solution? And have I already kind of established the solution, or do I have to have characters go out and find it, sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So, but generally, if a writer has got a problem he can't solve, well, he's made a mistake. I think you can't just look at a problem and go, well, I can't fix it, and then go on and keep going.
Yeah.
Then you got that kind of a Deus Ex Machina sort of explanation. And readers are smart.
Yes.
Readers are intelligent, and readers know when the writer cheats.
Right.
So I like to think I'm going to respect my audience and not cheat.
Yeah.
In a way they can notice. And
so you got to mask it.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite kind of author shortcuts is having a character lose consciousness and then wake up somewhere else, and then you tell him how he got there. And even what's her name, J.K. Rowling does this all the time with Harry Potter. So where Harry wakes up in the hospital and there's Dumbledore to explain everything that happened after he lost consciousness. And I've used that a few times. And generally it's when I don't want to describe this entire landing sequence because it's going to take forever and it's going to add nothing, because I've already had a different landing sequence earlier in the book. I'm just repeating myself. So the character's in a drop pod gets hit, character wakes up, on the ground, his men are there with him, telling him what happened. Okay, those are kind of, it's a little skip ahead that I kind of like.
Fast forward button.
I will use on occasion, and writers use that all the time. And then I'm like, if J.K. Rowling can get away with it, maybe I
honestly can. It's a solid tool, because and you said it, you don't want to repeat the same type of scene. That's something I come across. It's like, hey, so they did this 5 chapters ago. I realize we're in a different situation now, but we kind of need to come at it from a different angle, because otherwise we're just repeating what we read previously. So, yep. I mean, yeah, any way, time skips, unconsciousness, more big booms, new character comes in and throws wrenches into things, whatever you can do.
Yeah, but and then you had to be careful, because there was that one movie, Zero Dark 30. Have you seen this? Probably. It was the Hunt for Bin Laden movie. And as a former intelligence officer, I was watching it going the whole time. But in Zero Dark 30, there's this one point where the main character, I forgot what her name is. She has nothing, and then here comes this extra with a folder that has a solution for her, so how she can get to the next part and find Bin Laden. And
that's the Deus Ex Machina. You can't do that.
Yeah, I was just sitting there watching, going, "Are you kidding me?" Because I know how they actually got that phone number. I can't say it anyway. So,
secrets.
Yeah, so it's so when you're out there being a writer and okay, I need to kind of move things ahead. Can't be too obvious when you're kind of cheating or helping yourself out to move things ahead.
Maybe the writer. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna do like the folder thing, like you were saying earlier, Richard, you need to set it up. Right. Something needs to happen earlier where a reader can be like, oh my gosh, I hope they get the folder in time or whatever it is. And then they do. And then it's not a Deus Ex because it was anticipated.
Yep.
Right.
And that's where a great outline can help you. Where you're like, oh man, my character's stuck here. She needs something. Oh, hold on. Let me go write these 2 scenes previous to make it, to have that bit of information that the character needs become organic to the story. And if you do this, I think this is good writing. So, but this is where also, a good outline, I think, helps.
Yeah, and sometimes I found the solution is in the character's weaknesses or struggles. Sometimes they can provide the solution later on that you didn't see coming, but they had to deal with that earlier, and now that's given them some strengths that somehow works now, at least to give me an idea for where it can go.
Yes. The great and glorious character arc. That's
yes.
For the Bane, the book that's coming out in December called The Shattered Star Legacy. That's the name of the series. The first book is called Light of the Veil. The main character there, he starts off quite the everyman who's, he worked on a fishing boat for most of his life and had a bit of a background as a fighter. And it's fun to kind of like work those in along the way when all of a sudden, hey, knowing how to, be on a boat suddenly proves real useful when you're in this other dimension. It's, you have to read the book to find out.
Yeah, I was wondering that because, now when I read fantasy and urban fantasy, like the Dresden Files or whatever, you get to a point in the book where like all hope is lost, and I'm, as a reader and a writer, I'm kind of thinking, how would I come up with the solution? But you want the solution to feel, unlooked for, surprising, but also inevitable when you look back on it. Yeah, so I guess, to ask, to kind of go back to Kenny's question, like, how is the sausage made? I guess it is like, you've plotted it all ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And when you get stuck, you can just change it and kind of go back and insert scenes like Keelan's saying, and then it can create that feel, that inevitable, but like, where'd that come from?
Yeah. There's
not too easy.
In the hero's journey, one of the better parts of the hero's journey is Aid from Beyond, which is typically towards the end of a hero's journey. And like that Aid from Beyond moment is like, if you remember when Luke Skywalker's in the trench going through the Death Star and Darth Vader's right on his tail. And then who shows up at the very last second to save his neck? Han Solo. And the audience remembers, hey, Han Solo did leave earlier. He must have decided to come back around. That's that Aid from Beyond moment. And that's really helpful when all hope is lost. And the thing is, when you know the format, all of a sudden you can kind of start predicting movies. I took my boys to go see not Maui, Moana. And you go to Moana, and at the end there, when she's fighting Tikal, and all hope seems lost, here comes this giant lava monster, and I look over, my boys are freaking out, and I lean over and say, "Don't worry, Maui's about to come and help." 2 seconds later, here comes Maui out of the sky, and my oldest boy looked at me like, "Dad, have you seen this movie?" I'm like, no, Daddy's a writer. And
oh my god, I have to try so hard to keep my mouth shut. I think that's why she doesn't like watching movies with me anymore, because I'm just like, oh god, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know what's happening, and she'll look at me like, well, now you have to tell me. I'm like, nope, because it ruins it for her.
So if the setup's gun, there, darling. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's like you can say it's called Chekhov's gun. It's an important tool we're going to see later.
Right.
It's when you know to watch for that. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, I got it.
I know I do that. I'm like, oh, and she's like, it's going to happen, don't you? I'm like, maybe.
Well, here's another tricky plot problem that I see in books. Sometimes the plot can devolve into event after event after event, particularly in like war novels where it's just another battle after another battle after another battle. Have you noticed that when you're plotting? Have you seen that coming up in the outline? And what do you do to bring the story back into those battle scenes and to give it more of a character feel or a bigger arc? Like, how do you fix that?
I like to call that the kind of the monster of the week sort of phenomenon. And so generally when I'm writing a book, if I have like one sort of a war, like they're in a trench battle, then the next book or series it's not going to be anything in the trenches. Why? We've already seen that. So now it's going to be a maneuver warfare sort of fight. It's going to be an urban warfare fight. It's going to be something different where it's not like the exact same thing we just went through. Why? Because the reader's already been through that. The reader already knows how bad the trenches smell. The reader already knows there's rats everywhere. So what you need to so typically when it comes to like that kind of an action series is when you don't repeat the action, and then what I find useful is having characters move somewhere else. So if they're just in one trench the entire book, there's nowhere else to go. But if they're in a trench and then they get evacuated on a boat, and then the boat comes under attack, and now you've got a boarding action, or you're going to repel boarders sort of thing, and then the boat crashes on an island, and it turns out you crashed in enemy territory. Now you've got to move through this jungle. So now it is action beat, but it's action beats going somewhere else. It's an action beat that changes the environment. So now the reader is like, oh, I'm somewhere else. Oh, I'm doing this other sort of a fight, and the reader keeps staying engaged. So that's typically how I will avoid that, is just keep having characters move around. And then like I wrote I'll remember it later, but one Ember War kind of standalone book, Till Valhalla, where it starts off, it's characters are in armor, which is the big mech suits from the Ember War, and it introduces one character, he's in his armor, and later on he gets his armor is damaged and he has to get out. So now you have this one guy who's 90 pounds soaking wet, and he's not meant to ever be outside of his armor. Now he's outside of his armor in Australia, where everything is trying to kill him. So that's different. And then get him back into armor later, and then the audience is like, oh, thank goodness, because they pretty much came for that. But then they got him out of the armor, got to experience his character, being a civilian a little bit, or being a normal grunt for the sake of a story for a little bit, which is unusual. So for the story, and so just find ways to change it up and keep the readers kind of always guessing and always surprised at what's coming around. And it's like when readers come to a story of mine, I know what they're expecting of me. So it's my job as a writer to give them what they expect, but also give them something new that they didn't know they wanted, but they like anyway. And so I always kind of try to keep doing that. If I can keep doing that, the readers always know I'm going to get a good military sci-fi action story out of Richard, and some of the best silly humor, fart jokes that I can manage. I'm sorry, ladies.
No,
I'm okay.
I write some pretty good potty humor. I'm not proud of it, but it's pretty good.
No, you don't even have to apologize to me. Me and Frisbee were dusting off Marine's Luck and Oorah. I just got finished rereading book 1, and oh God, I forgot how much I love that book. So I'm working on book 2 now, getting it fleshed back out. So we've got pocket pool going and everything, so no worries.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure life runs on potty humor. I mean, this is just
everyone can relate to it. Yes. They may not admit it, but everyone can relate to it.
So what have been some of the scenes that your audiences have loved the most? Maybe it was surprising to you that they really connected, or just like the reviews keep coming and coming about this kind of scene?
Well, in the tier books, I had some toilet paper scarcity jokes, and I written this book right after COVID.
Right.
And I got more comments about like I laughed so hard at that, and that people, and it was just really minor kind of throwaway lines about and stockpile toilet paper. I don't know why. It's just you have to. And everyone's kind of like, yeah, we get that. But some of the characters, like with Standish for the Ember War, people really, really like that character. I mean, he's pretty funny. He's got, he's a thief with a heart of gold. And, just and how everything with him sort of comes up works really well. And then, some of the more heroic elements or the heroic scenes with Elias and the armor from the Ember War, people really, really resonated with. And it's like, okay, it's like, I'm good. I'm glad that is the case. And but then it's a lot of sometimes we're like in Terra Nova. There's a scene where they're trying to name the ship that they're on, and Josh Hayes did this with me, and like I wrote the jokes such a way that like they got all the names they end up getting for the ship are all these gag names, and like the lieutenant who's in charge of this is just getting angrier and angrier as it goes on, and people really liked that scene. I'm like, okay, I didn't think that would be the one scene everyone kind of latched onto, but the humor worked there. And from what I've noticed is this, if I ever like try to force a joke, it's not going to work. Or rather, if I see them going, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, here's this shower scene that's going to happen later in this book where I'm doing for Bane, and if I can make this hit right, it'll be hilarious. So
nice.
If it works, it should be like something out of Friends. That's how I tell myself it needs to land. So you can watch for that book in maybe another 6 months or so. But.
So sometimes it's those scenes that you've planned up towards, and sometimes it's ones that just strike you in the moment while you're writing.
Yep.
And other times it's a combination, like the shower scene. That's
yep.
That's yet to be written.
Well, it's outlined, so I know all of the beats I have to hit for this joke to work.
Right.
So it might just be akin to stand-up comedy, where some comic will kind of set up a big joke over the course of several minutes, and then bam, there's the punchline. And so we'll see how it plays out
in novel form. So which book is that? What's the title of that one?
So the Bane book with the shower scene is right now. I just have it as it's in my notes. It's The Grind, but I don't think that title is going to work. But also is like I'm probably going to find some way to bring up the Odyssey in it, because it's very much that kind of a story where these soldiers have to get home after a war and they don't go straight home for sure. So it's of course no one knows what the name of Odysseus' ship is, so I could have just called it that, but no one knows. It's funny how Homer wrote down all these details about Odysseus' ship, how it was built. He never gave it a name. I'm like, why not? I don't know why. But.
When they get home, are their wives going to be remarried?
Oh, good question. We'll find out. So
we'll find out.
It's we'll see if there's a bunch of suitors there and the bow and arrow and everything, but no, we'll see. So, any other questions from chat while you got me here?
I had a question about the urban tech, but I was trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, the urban sci-fi series. I've been sitting on that since that started off as Star Trek fan fiction, but then I'm like, well, this character really does work in this other situation. So,
right. Okay, that's my question. Okay, so you came up with your main character and his protagonist and his tech-based powers.
He is a altered human with he's largely cyborg, and so.
Is it set in like our world 2023 or like?
Yes, well, it's set in the near future. It starts off during the Second Korean War, and this one character is badly wounded during the war, and then he's taken in by the government, and the government finds a way to use him as kind of a test bed for technology. It's very Universal Soldier-ish, but then there's a twist that happens very early on, where all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is different now. So it won't be pure Universal Soldiers. Rather, there's going to be this twist about the first act where the readers are going to be going, oh, okay, this is different. I don't want to spoil it just yet. But.
Yeah. Okay. That was my question. Like, what's the premise? What's the
premise
plot?
is a soldier is taken in by a government program to be a kind of a cyborg soldier, and then all of a sudden the government doesn't have control over him that they thought they did. And so that should be 2 to 3 books. And I've told Athon I want this to be a tragedy, and I want to tell the readers up front that it's a tragedy, because otherwise when they get to the end they're going to come for me. And the strange thing is that if you tell the readers at the beginning, hey, this is a tragedy, all of a sudden they kind of accept the ending. And that worked with Romeo and Juliet. That's the first thing Shakespeare did, is he had I think it was the mayor of the city came out and like, hey, this is in Fair Verona, blah, blah, blah. This is what happens. Okay. And then at the end, people get to, they kind of know what happens to Romeo and Juliet. Kind of at the beginning, they didn't know how, but they know what happens. And then they're able to kind of like step back and appreciate what happens there. I mean,
yeah, Richard, I'm not sure I'm going to accept it.
Yeah, well,
even if you tell me it's a tragedy, I'm still not sure I'm going to accept this sadly ever after.
Great expectations. The audience did not accept the first ending, and then they had to rewrite that ending. Strangely enough, but yeah, it's amazing. If you like, everyone knows what happens at the. If you watch, you hear there's a movie called Titanic coming out. You know how it ends.
True,
but everyone agrees that their heart will go on by the end of it, so it still kind of works. So I'm sorry. What? You didn't think there would be a Celine Dion joke today? Okay. I'm sorry. It's
Zach Kenny in the chat saying Till Valhalla was awesome.
Thank you, Zach.
Aussie reader here.
Thank you, Zach. It's but writing a tragedy, if you kind of tell the readers, hey, this isn't going to end well for everybody, for some reason people will be like, I'm still going to get to the end because maybe you're lying to me, and then also they get to the end and it's not going to end well for everybody, but there's also the books I'm writing for Athon. There's another very good minor twist in it where if people, I won't spoil it, but if people figure this twist out or figure out where this character's from, they're gonna go, hey, wait a minute, and then I should start getting some emails. Hey, Richard, does that mean this? And I'm like, maybe. So
that sounds interesting.
I've got some ideas in there to make just a pleasant surprise for people who read a lot of my books to go, hey, why is that there? And
that's always fun to do.
Yeah.
And
I hate being so vague on it, but
we love the Easter eggs. But if you tell us what the Easter eggs are, then they're no longer Easter eggs.
Yeah, they're not Easter eggs. Now they're just plot points. Yeah.
Alrighty. Do you have any?
So Tuesday, the Queen of Sidonia complete edition comes out on ebook and audio. And if you pick up the ebook first, you should be able to get the audiobook for 1/2 credit, which is a bargain, especially when the the audiobook is 14 hours and 8 minutes for 1 credit. It's 2 books in one. 14 hours for your daily commute of listening to the incredibly talented Moira Quirk. Moira Quirk. I don't know if she picked that stage name, but who has narrated a great deal of books. I'm looking through it right now. She is a very busy narrator, and she's phenomenal. So that will be available for everybody on Tuesday. And so I would do my best to have the ebook at 99 cents for everyone on Tuesday. So you can get that ebook plus the audiobook for a bargain. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. And so it's one of those books, if you haven't read this book by Richard, it's got all the adventure and it's got the heart and the excitement and the pew-pew of a normal Richard book, but also kind of that lighthearted romantic comedy. So maybe someone else in your life might also be interested in hearing one of your audiobooks for once.
Let's
do it together. Who knows?
If the Queen and King of Sidonia was a movie, yeah, it might be the best date movie ever. Why? Because every guy could go there going, there's stuff blowing up. I love it. And every girl could go there going, they're in love. I love it. That's my opinion of how it works.
It's both there.
I don't know if there's many romance war novels out there or romance war movies for dates.
There should be more, though. We know that for sure.
There should be, because if somebody comes out of the movie, they can, the guy can be like, Raimi and the King are both right. And then the girls can be like, Cosima was right too, and then everyone could be happy. That's my opinion. But we'll see. Read the book, listen to the book, decide for yourself. Leave a review.
Good stuff. There's some quirky characters in there that are fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you, Richard, for coming on and sharing your time with us. Where for those who have not yet gone into the Richard verse, where can they find all of the rest of your books? And
best place, just go to Amazon, type in Richard Fox, and I suggest starting with The Ember War or The Tyr Arrival or Exiled Fleet. start there. Those are the 3 series I have 100% complete. And also, of course, read the Queen of Sidonia Complete Edition, and which is 2 books, stands alone on its own. So there's some people out there who like don't want to get sucked into some giant series that never ends. No, Queen of Sidonia, 2 books in one that you can get and have a nice, good, solid ending there for you if people need that.
All right, you heard it here. You heard the almost spoilers, juicy bits, some ideas for tackling your own writing, and don't be afraid to tweak and adjust and challenge yourself to challenge your characters more. Don't be lazy. Don't take the easy way out. Add an extra explosion, another dropped gate, and make it fun for the reader too. All right. And with that, we thank our audience. We had a lot of people out there today. Leo Vaccaro, Zach Kenny, B. Freeman, Trucker Charlie D. I heard Patricia was out there, I think, in the Facebook side. I can't see your name. You're all just Facebook users. So all of y'all, thank you for being here. Be sure to check us out next time. I'm going to say next time because we're still a little... We don't know what's happening half the time. But we love being here. We love being live. And thank you all for joining us. Check out the Facebook group. We're always still there. It's gone. And yeah, enjoy what is today? Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we'll see you later. Peace out, you guys.